idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our third and final off-season preview edition show today. We are covering the last four remaining teams, going over these rosters player by player. We have covered the first third of the league, or I should say the first two-thirds of the league, and we have the real contender tier left for us today.
The best third.
Oh, let's not. Your ego's already big enough. We don't need to do this right away. No, we have the teams here who, according to Dynasty Daddy, are the highest likelihood to make the playoffs, highest likelihood to have those first round bye, that first round bye, I should say, and highest likelihood to win the finals. So these are the cream of the crop of the league.
As of right now.
Right now, yes.
We'll see what happens.
Always subject to change.
Right after week one, I imagine this will change.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about it before we started recording. The commissioner, mellcrisp, is our first team with an 85% chance to make the playoffs. And last year, he had a fine start to the season in terms of points, but a very poor start to the season in terms of win-loss record. He got very unlucky a couple of times. And subsequently, his percentage chance to make the playoffs dropped until he was on the outside looking in for a majority of the season. And then that late round push got him over the hump.
Yeah, I mean, it really held true based on how tight the standings were. He needed a really strong run in the middle and the end of the season to get enough wins to get into that playoff picture again. So really, a slow start can sink you, and if it's going to be as tight as it was last year.
Like we said before, it came right down to the last week of the season last year. Let's get into Mel's roster here. mellcrisp, 85% chance to make the playoffs last year. Didn't make the finals, right? You guys were the finals matchup, correct?
Right.
So this is obviously a team that has the championship pedigree, even if he didn't get over the hump in the final game. The story of this team is another team with excellent balance. But we're going to start at the quarterback position where he has a rank of 3. Josh Allen is the story in any room that he's in. Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Spencer Rattler, the big names on this squad.
Yeah, Josh Allen is the superstar of superstars. You can make a good case for Josh Allen to be the number one pretty much every year. He's been the number one scoring quarterback for the last few years. It's really a coin flip between him and Mahomes, and I know we see Allen go 101 quite a few places.
We just started a redraft best ball league, and I had the 101, and I took Josh Allen.
Right.
It's for a single season, I'm not going any other way. For long term, there's arguments to be made, but he's just so incredible.
Yep, he's good. Not a lot to add to that. He's going to be the anchor of this room, certainly, with some questionable depth behind him. You know, he's got a couple of other starters here. Geno Smith and Daniel Jones are locked in as long as they stay healthy. And then Justin Fields, we may see at some point, based on how Russell Wilson has played the last couple of seasons. There's a chance that Fields gets in there, forces his way on the field at some point, you know, which will, it's a nice piece to have on your bench. We've seen what his fantasy upside is.
It's interesting that even though he's not the starter, he still has more value according to, you know, the keep, trade, cut formula than Geno Smith and Daniel Jones for trade purposes.
It just speaks to his upside. I mean, a guy like that in best ball, maybe not so much because those zeros count every week, but in a lineup league where you don't have to play him until he's starting, he's a very valuable piece because he's currently a backup, but if he takes over the starting job, he's automatically a quarterback 1.
Yeah. He's done it before, even with very abysmal passing numbers.
Right.
He just
he doesn't need to throw the ball to be a quarterback 1.
We'll see what happens in Pittsburgh there. That's one of the rooms that I'm most interested to see how it shakes out, because I don't think that either one of those guys is a proper long-term answer. not even short-term answer, but just it'll be interesting to see how that team deals with the quarterback issue over the season.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely that we see both of them, and then next year we see neither of them. That seems like the most likely scenario here.
Well, the price is right anyways. They didn't pay for either one of them, and they're not paying for either one of them.
Right. It's just they're both bridge guys to whoever they end up drafting next year, most likely, unless we get a surprising resurgence from one of the two.
And most of these backups, I don't think really worth discussing a whole heck of a lot, but I think that Spencer Rattler is one of the higher thought of backups coming in.
Yeah, he was a highly touted high school guy and got off to a hot start in college and then basically got replaced by Caleb Williams. And he's kind of bounced around since then, went kind of late in the draft. But for a guy that was a day 3 quarterback, he's certainly had more hype than you would normally see. And it looks like he's fought his way into the number 2 spot. Saints' current depth chart lists Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler. So I think they don't know who they want their number 2 to be. We'll find out on game day designations shortly.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of ors on depth charts usually.
Derek Carr is another shaky starter based on his performance the last couple of years.
All right, so we're going to move over to the running back room. Running back rank of 7. And this is a good room that lacks that one superstar at the top. He's got nice depth, but there's no Josh Allen of the running back room here. So the big names: Rashad White, DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Zach Moss, Austin Eckler, some backups.
Right. These are guys that don't carry a ton of fantasy value, hence the 7th overall rank for running back, but they're going to score a lot of points. I mean, nobody likes Rashad White, but he finishes as a running back 1 the last couple of seasons. Yeah, everyone likes to hate on DeAndre Swift. Tony Pollard had a rough season last year, but the Titans gave him a bunch of money. Aaron Jones is 1,000,000 years old, but he keeps producing whenever he's on the field. Austin Eckler is on a new team. Zach Moss is on a new team. Both of them look like they should be worked into at least good timeshare where they're going to score points every week.
Yeah, there will be points coming from these guys. And it's a room that should catch a lot of passes. None of these guys are like big bruising backs. Like all of these guys could legitimately catch 50, 60 balls. I would not be shocked at any of them catching that many passes.
Yeah, and that raises the floor of all these guys as well.
Exactly. This type of production is a little bit more consistent than a lot of other running back production. You don't have that big, oh man, he had 3 touchdowns. Well, I mean, Austin Eckler's as likely as anyone to score 3 touchdowns. I've heard the discourse.
Are we talking about on the season or in one game?
Listen, there has been no more effective goal line running back than Austin Eckler over the past few seasons. Literally, there have been no more effective.
When they finally gave him a chance to actually be used at the goal line, he turned out to be very effective.
Even like when he was hurt, he'd come in for like 2 plays on the goal line because they'd go like, 3 and out. And then the next time down, they'd be like, oh, I guess we got to bring Austin in. And he'd just come in and score in 1 play and then be done.
Well, he spent so much time being typecast as a, scat back, passing down back, that when they finally were forced to go to him in short yardage, at this point, he's bulked up quite a bit from when he came in. If anyone has seen him recently, he's got to be about 30 pounds heavier than when he was undrafted. But yeah, he's really turned himself into a complete bag. So we'll see how that timeshare shakes out. A lot of people have left Austin Eckler for dead, but I think that may have had to do with his early season ankle injury last year. But we'll find out this year.
One other thing to note, Cordero Patterson is reunited with Arthur Smith. So,
there's a role for him this year, much to the chagrin of Warren and Najee Harris owners. I feel like we may see more Cordero Patterson than anybody else wants.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what he ends up with. He's 33 now or something? He's getting up there. Can only keep doing it for so long. Let's pop on over to that wide receiver room. We've got a similar story there. Wide receiver rank of 7. This time it's top heavy though, not the same depth. We've got Jamar Chase and AJ Brown at the top, 2 absolute studs. Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, Demario Douglas, Demarcus Robinson, bunch of backups.
It's a very good top end, but it
Yeah.
thins out pretty quickly.
It
But
does.
the top end, oh boy, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, these are three guys who could all be the wide receiver one on the season, and none of us would bat an eye.
Nope. I would not be surprised at any of it.
Right.
It's a scary room when you go against it on a weekly basis. Jamar Chase has shifted a little bit as of last year, I think, from the deep and touchdown guy to having a little bit more volume, which, gives him a little bit more consistency week to week. But with a fully healthy Joe Burrow season, I think you could kind of have the possibility of seeing both of those things happen.
Right. I think that was the biggest thing holding him back. Turning him into a short, intermediate possession guy was the fact that Jake Browning started quite a few games versus Joe Burrow. A full season of healthy Joe Burrow. It's going to make Jamar Chase scary again, assuming he actually signs and plays this year.
True.
As of recording, he has not signed an extension and is still not practicing. They're quickly running out of time.
I wonder if this was all just a way for him to try and get out of camp or something. I don't know.
I guess we'll find out in a couple of days when the season starts.
He still has 2 years left on his deal, right? Like this year and next year.
Right. Plus the franchise option.
It's a little early to be trying to hold out for a new deal. Generally, you give it one more year before this happens.
Yep.
It's almost like he doesn't realize he's employed by the Bengals, though.
Right. If you knew his history, you would know better than to try to get money from the Browns.
Oh,
Not the team Browns, but owner Mike Brown.
Yeah, no, I got it. Oh, man. So there's a few depth pieces on this team that could have some roles as the season goes on. Mac Hollins could be that wide receiver 3 in Buffalo, provides that stack with Josh Allen. KJ Osborne, we discussed before when we had our in-depth Tyquan Thornton chat. He's going to have a role in New England.
Yep, Pop Douglas and KJ Osborne. He's got way too many Patriots receivers.
You're not wrong, but I mean, 2 being way too many is kind of sad.
Josh Reynolds, we know, is going to play pretty much every down in Denver. Yeah. They got rid of Tim Patrick, opening the lane for Josh Reynolds, fantasy superstar Josh Reynolds.
I'm just going to let those words hang for a minute. Let's move on. Over to Mel's tight end room. Mel's got a tight end rank of 4. This is a solid room right here. There's some nice depth here. At the top, we've got Kyle Pitts, Greg Dulcich, Tucker Kraft, Noah Fant, Tyler Conklin, and Noah Gray.
Yep, this is definitely one of the deeper tight end rooms we've seen, especially among the contenders. He's got multiple guys that could potentially start every week. Most of the contenders we've seen, it's kind of like 2 guys, maybe 1 guy or 0 guys that are going to be weekly starters. But he's got Kyle Pitts, who we're all waiting to finally take that next step into fantasy superstardom. Maybe a new coach, new offense will help. And then he's got a couple of other guys that are going to play a lot. They're going to play every down. Fant, Conklin, potentially Dulcich having a bounce back year. Tucker Kraft, we don't know how that rotation is going to be with Musgrave, but he certainly performed down the stretch when Musgrave was hurt. So you got to think there's some kind of role available for him. He's got decent depth, a lot better than most of the teams we've seen so far.
Very, very much so. Having Pitts, Dulcich, Fant, and Conklin, who are all the legitimate starters, is just a step above almost any other team having 4 actual starting tight ends.
Yep.
There's, like you said, Kraft filled in nicely. Gray, if something happens, and they can provide extra value, but those 4 are actually going to see all the snaps.
Right. Yeah, it makes a big difference in this depth of format.
Looking over at Mel's draft capital, this one is very straightforward. He has all of his own picks and no extra picks. Everything is intact, 25, 26, 27. He's got options.
Yep, he's got ammo for in-season moves should he need it. He's got a pretty balanced and deep team, but injuries always crop up. There's always holes to fill, no matter how good your team looks in the preseason. Week one will change a lot of those feelings.
Very much so. And there's always buying opportunities as teams and players get hurt and teams, drop out of the race or buy into the race. And, there's things to do with your capital, although we haven't really seen Mel be very aggressive in this particular league with his future capital.
No, he's mostly held on to his picks. He's made a couple of moves. I know last year he traded his first, picked up a couple of guys like Deontay Johnson towards the end of the season. So we may see something like that again if he's in a similar position.
Yeah, I would expect so.
But for the most part, he hasn't been a team that is trading multiple years out worth of picks.
No, and there's no real reason for him to do so either. He's already in a contending position. Like we said, he made the finals last year, so it's a team that's already strong enough to not to need to do that.
Right. It's just trying to get over that final hump here.
Let's move on to our next team. At a 90% chance to make the playoffs, we have Flinch's roster. The last two teams were 81 and 85% chance. These last three remaining teams, we have 90, 90, and 94% chance to make the playoffs. So these are, even again, just one slight cut above according to our ranking source here. But Flinch's roster, he's got a quarterback rank of 4. There's some depth here. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson.
Yep, he's got 3 starters, seemingly locked in starters. At least to start the season.
Right. After we just discussed Justin Fields.
We'll see. I mean, it's going to be Russell Wilson's job unless he bombs.
It's his job to lose.
Right. So at the moment, he's locked in. Watson, again, locked in as long as he's healthy. We haven't really seen a healthy Deshaun Watson in a while now. But we know the ceiling is there. It's been quite a few years now since we've seen it, but
yeah,
the ceiling's there for him to be an impactful fantasy difference maker. And then we know what Lamar Jackson, I mean, the guy's a MVP. We know what he brings to the table.
Lamar Jackson has more value than basically the entire rest of this quarterback room put together, including all the backups that I didn't name.
Right. Yeah, he's got quite a few backup quarterbacks as well on the roster. But yep, this is Lamar's show. If Lamar has another MVP type season, then this is going to be a very good quarterback room, regardless of what the other guys provide.
Yeah, and we've no reason to think that won't happen. Lamar Jackson's been very, very good for fantasy purposes.
Yep, he's been consistently excellent as long as he's been out there.
So looking at the backups here, I'm going to read them off. Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, Jordan Travis, Jarrett Stidham, Stetson Bennett, and Malik Cunningham. Are any of these guys really worth rostering outside of maybe Hooker and Milton?
I mean, there's some guys you can stick on a taxi squad. I don't even think Malik Cunningham plays quarterback anymore. I'm pretty sure
I don't believe he does.
Pretty sure he's a wide receiver on somebody's practice squad.
Yep.
Most of these guys are kind of taxi guys. Bennett's a third quarterback. Travis is a third quarterback. Milton's a third quarterback. Hooker flashed a little bit in the preseason. He's ended up winning that quarterback 2 job. He's definitely a guy that's worth holding on to on your bench. And we know Stidham was in competition to be the starter in Denver. So I guess if you're holding guys, at least hold guys that are in position to potentially take over if the starter goes down.
I'm not sure that these guys are in the position is what I'm saying.
Not all of them. No.
It's easy to criticize a backup quarterback roster spot, I guess. So it's
yeah, if you're sticking them on your taxi, then whatever, the zeros don't count against you.
It's just I'm not sure I would commit 6 bench spots to these 6 players in a deep best ball where I had legitimate aspirations on a title.
Yeah, we've talked about it with a couple of the other rosters. It's tough to take that many guaranteed zeros every week. And it's not like he's got a super thin quarterback room up top. He's got 3 week 1 starters.
Yep. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Last year obviously was the year of the backup, so I could easily look very stupid 2 months from now when half of these guys are starting.
There's also not a ton of exciting options to pick up
That's
off
true.
of waivers. There's got to be someone worth grabbing in order to drop these players as well. So
I feel confident in saying that Flinch could do better than Malik Cunningham. I feel confident.
Well, we'll get to his wide receiver position.
It's true, we will. But before we get there, let's get to the running back position. This is the strength of the team here. Running back rank of 2, and there are some big names here. Breece Hall at the top, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Derrick Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, and Zamir White. It's a lot of starters.
This is the reason that he's a 90% chance to make the playoffs. It's this room. This might be the strongest positional group of anyone in the entire league, not just running backs. just overall position group. This is a very strong group.
You've said that before.
And this is probably the best one. It's ranked number 2, and we'll get to the number 1 team shortly. But I think this one is probably better for the points we're expecting from these guys. Breece Hall is a superstar. Kyron Williams was a superstar last year. The runway's been cleared for Pacheco. We know what Derrick Henry can do. We expect a healthy bounce back from Stevenson's. Zamir White is locked into an early down role with a potential to expand that. And even guys like Jaleel McLaughlin, they cut Perrine, so McLaughlin's going to play probably a lot in tandem with Javonte. 7th running back, like the guy's 7th down the depth chart is a guy that could be very valuable. It's a very good group, and it is the reason why we're expecting him to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, the one interesting thing I find at the bottom end of this running back room is that it's all Broncos. McLaughlin, Estime, and Watson are all there.
Well, spoiler alert, Flinch is a Broncos fan. I'm sure he follows the team very closely. A lot of these guys it's not like he made a heavy investment. These are all guys that were either picked up off waivers or late picks. So it was a cheap way to be invested in your team. And it looks like it's going to pay off. Some of these guys are going to have roles this year.
Yeah, at least one of them is going to be the primary backup. So he'll have that covered.
Right.
But it's really the top end of this room that makes this team so scary. And like you said, Breece Hall and Kyron Williams at the top that'll get it done.
Yeah. I mean, and the rest of these guys, they all have running back 1 upside here. Pacheco, we've seen what he can do down the stretch. Derrick Henry's been doing it for years. And even Stevenson, we saw he's not far removed from being a running back 1.
Yeah, only a year. All right. So
if he's got 5 or 6 running back 1s on his team, it's going to be difficult to dethrone that running back room.
It's going to do a lot of that flex lifting for him, because those flex plays probably aren't coming from this wide receiver room, which has a rank of 10. It's a little bit thinner at the top. Rashee Rice, George Pickens, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin. So I guess I shouldn't say at the top, because those are all solid guys. It's after that things thin out. Marvin Mims, Sky Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Chase Claypool. After McLaurin, it drops off quick.
Yeah, the top 4 guys are legitimate every week starters. Rice, Pickens, Adams, McLaurin. These guys are all going to have good seasons. We're all projecting them to be their team's wide receiver 1. And then after that, it gets scary quickly. So outside of these 4, we're not sure what we're going to get from the rest of them. Marvin Mims, potentially. The runway's been cleared for him to be maybe an every down player. We saw how explosive he was in part-time duty last year. If his role expands, he may be a useful player. But the rest of these guys, it's not a likely scenario that they're going to be fantasy contributors, even in a deep league like this.
No, there's not much hope for the bottom part of that roster, or bottom part of that room.
So yeah, he's very thin. He's just going to have to hope these guys are healthy and as productive as we expect them to be.
Yeah. He really if he gets one more really good season out of Devontae Adams, then this room will be fine.
Yep.
It'll get the job done. You're going to get 2 guys every week who have good scores, and then you hope that, the other 2 give you flex plays. And some weeks you're going to get all 4 of them with great scores, and some week it'll happen eventually. They'll all just have an off week at the same time.
Yeah, but even then, the floor is very high. These are guys that are all going to get a ton of targets, as many targets as they can handle, because a lot of them are in rooms where there isn't a ton of other options.
Yeah.
I mean, McLaurin really is the only legitimate receiving threat in Washington at the moment. Adams has Jacoby and the tight ends, but, he's an alpha target hog. Pickens, we've already discussed their wide receiver 2, Van Jefferson. So, I mean, these are guys that could see 150, 160, 170 targets. That raises the floor quite a bit on these guys.
Fair. Yeah, and Pickens does give him the stack with Russell Wilson as well. And it does seem like their skill sets line up well together. So that could work out.
Yep. We'll see that rainbow ball this year, I'm sure.
All right, let's move on to the tight end room. Flinch has a tight end rank of 5. He's got Dalton Kincaid, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Luke Schoonmaker, Brenton Strange, Adam Troutman, Alberto Guebanam. I'm tailing off for a reason. Mo Alley Cox, and Logan Thomas.
He's got a lot of bodies. Most of these guys are not going to be contributors. He did just pick up Cole Kmet in a trade. That was big for him. He needed that second tight end threat. We know what Dalton Kincaid's going to do. He's going to be an every week starter for him. And then he needed somebody else. So now he's got the combination of Kmet and Everett. So even if the Bears end up rotating tight ends like they did in the preseason, like offensive coordinator Shane Waldron loved to do in Seattle, at least between the two of them, he'll probably get one useful score a week.
There'll be someone from Chicago in his lineup every week.
Yeah, because before that, he was really at risk of taking a 0 in this other spot. Most of these other guys don't play much or don't do much besides blocking.
Yeah, it's there are guys here who are still somewhat young. Schoonmaker, I think, is only going into, I think, his 3rd year. Strange is going into his 2nd year. I don't know what year we're on Aguebanon, but I think that ship has sailed. It's possible you see a little bump from some of these guys, but none of them are going to be weekly in and out starters.
Yeah, they're all behind established vets, so it's going to be hard for them to crack the lineup without injury.
And this, you said he just picked up Kmet. That was a trade with you, wasn't it?
Right.
So that's a fairly recent addition. We saw Flinch draft Kincaid last year at the very beginning of the draft. What was it, 5th, I think?
Yeah, he was early. I think it was 4. I think he went 104.
Yeah. Very, very early on. And obviously that looked good year 1. And it's quite possible that he takes an extra step year 2 with the departure of Diggs. It could mean that this tight end room is even better than it looks on the surface.
Yep. Yeah, if Kincaid walks into an even bigger target share, which we're expecting growth in year 2, then it makes this tight end room all the better.
All right. Last thing to cover here. Flinch has a draft capital rank of 8. He's missing his 2025 second round pick. Everything else is there.
Yep. That was the price for Cole Kmet.
That's a good buy in this league. You get the production on the roster for this year, fills that spot of high need and low availability.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a move that he needed to make. So
yeah, and a projected late second round pick at that.
Right.
Any final thoughts before we move on?
This is a good team. These are all good teams at this point. This one has a bigger hole than most, but I think that low wide receiver rank might be a little overrated. He's just missing depth really at the position. He's got the starters to compete.
Yeah, and part of that also is age deflating Devontae Adams' ranking and value a little bit.
And Terry McLaurin
he's
a
still
bit.
Exactly. McLaurin is also suffering from just name fatigue, I think. He's just been around for long enough that
right. And he's also just not rostering 25 receivers like we've seen some of the other teams.
That is also true. So
he has them all at quarterback, apparently.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our next team. Flinch was at that 90% chance. BiggBiscuits also had a 90% chance to make the playoffs. His quarterback room, where we're going to start, looks a little bit different. There are only 3 names here, and they are all starters. He has trimmed the fat down. Right. We have Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, and Aaron Rodgers.
This is how you want your quarterback room to look in the best ball. Starters, that's
maybe.
Guys that contribute.
I don't want Aaron Rodgers in my quarterback room.
All right, maybe not Aaron Rodgers specifically, but this construction where you got your starters, you got 3 starters, 3 locked-in guys. Maybe not these specific guys, but this general construction, no wasted space.
Yeah, it's tight. It's 3 starters. There's no frills. Kyler Murray, obviously coming off of the injury last year, has bumped back up just a little bit in value, and he's going to anchor the room. Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, both serviceable. They're not going to give you those huge boom weeks, but they're going to be consistent. They're going to put up good numbers, and they'll get the job done.
Yep, it's more than enough to win in this league as long as everyone stays healthy and they're at least as productive as we're projecting. This is a good enough quarterback room to win. It's only ranked 10th in value, but certainly a good enough room to win with.
No, absolutely. The rank of 10 here can just pretty much be safely ignored. All right. So we're going from rank 10 to the running back room where you teased this one a moment ago. This rank is number 1. There is a lot of power in this running back room. This room is going to run roughshod over a lot of people this year.
This is the actual deepest running back room. He's got about 37 running backs rostered, and almost all of them are guys that are going to have weekly roles. There's a lot of them, and there's not a lot of wasted spots here.
No. So let's start at the top. The big names: Devon Achane, Kenneth Walker, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Trey Benson, Joe Mixon, Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams. I'm still in the big name section. All right, that's it.
James Conner.
I would say James Conner should be in that section, but he's a little bit further down in value. Some other names: Chase Brown, Jalen Wright, Kendre Miller, Deuce Vaughn, Craig Reynolds will have a backup role.
Not only does he have 57 starting
incredible.
running backs, he's got a bunch of high-end handcuffs as well.
Yeah. And these running backs, they're spread out between, you got a couple of veterans like Jacobs and Mixon and James Conner, but you've also got young guys like Achane's in his second year, Walker and Cook. What are they, third year now?
Yep.
Trey Benson's a rookie. It's a very, very deep, very talented room.
Yeah, this is a best ball running back room that you dream of. Just fill it with starting running backs and take the best points every week.
Yeah. It's a thing of beauty. And we'll see how many of these end up filling those flex spots every week, but I would imagine almost all of them.
Thankfully, he doesn't have to choose who to start every week.
Oh,
that would be a nightmare. But the fact this is best ball, this would be your ideal roster construction for a running back room in a best ball if you're a win now team.
Yep. And you've got the guys like Achane at the top who can go for those huge weeks. Mixon, we saw last year, have a 55-point game. You'll see big boom weeks on occasion.
Yep. All these guys are, a good percentage of them are going to be handling heavy volume as well. So he's got the floor, he's got the ceiling, he's got the depth, he's got upside, he's got everything you can possibly ask for. This is a very good running back room, not filled with the highest tier superstar running backs for redraft, but I mean, he's got like running back 5 through 20 on this on this team. I don't know if he's got any top 5, but he's got 5 through 20.
Well, and something to note is that a lot of these running backs, and I feel like this is something that really actually matters, are on good offenses. And even if they're not on great offenses, they're all on, solid ones like that. Think about it. Achane's on the Dolphins. Walker's on Seattle. Cook is on Buffalo. Jacobs is on Green Bay. These are all above average offenses. Obviously
in Houston,
some are better than others, but like until you get down to the unknowns of Brian Robinson and Javonte Williams.
Right, but now you're going 6, 7, 8 guys deep on this.
And even below that, you've got guys that are on good offenses, like James Conner, who's down below those on this list.
This is a very well built running back room.
Having those offenses be the ones that are driving your running back points is incredible. All right. Before we skip over to the wide receiver room, we're going to jump over it and go to the tight end room because he's got the rank of 1 at tight end as well. So if we're throwing out the flowers here, we may as well get it all out of the way. There are some good names here: Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, TJ Hawkinson, Luke Musgrave, and Zach Ertz.
I mean, good names. It's got the names. The number 1 and number 2 dynasty tight ends are both on the same roster in a start 2 deep best ball tight end group. I don't know that you could possibly build a better tight end room than what he's starting out with here.
Yeah, he's got TJ Hawkinson out injured, and it almost doesn't matter.
Right. His tight end 3 is TJ Hawkinson, who was the tight end 1 for most of the season last year in actual points. And that's his third tight end. This is a ridiculous tight end room, and this is the reason that no one else has any tight ends, is because Big has all of them.
Here's the thing, though. He's only got 5 guys rostered. It's just that 4 of the 5 are all good and young, and then there's Zach Ertz.
Well, that's how you know that this is a good tight end room, because he's ranked 1 in overall value, and he doesn't even have that many players. It's not like he's got 20 tight ends rostered.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
And even Zach Ertz on the back end of the roster, he's right now their lead tight end. He's going to run the most tight end routes of anyone else on that team.
He might have the
for as long as
second
he
most
holds up.
targets for the first month of the season on that team.
For as long as he holds up.
I'm not criticizing Ertz as a part of his roster. It's just he doesn't compare to the rest of these guys. That's all.
Right, but he's still going to score points more than most teams have on their benches.
He's a usable depth piece, especially in a league like this.
Yep.
There's the roster baiting for running back and tight end. Let's go over to wide receiver. All right, so the wide receiver rank for Big is 8. He's got Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Michael Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, bunch of backups.
Yeah, he's kind of similar to Flinch, where he's kind of top heavy. He's obviously got a little more depth. There's a few more guys down this list that we expect to be contributors versus the last team we looked at. And he's got the higher end fantasy value guys in Nico and DK and Higgins. It's still a deep room, not as deep as some of the other ones we've seen, with the value rank of 8, but he's got more than enough receivers here to get it done.
There's plenty enough to fill in the 2 wide receiver spots that you have to fill in every week, and then a little bit extra with some guys that have the potential to flash and have those big weeks. We've seen good touchdown numbers from Cortland Sutton. We've seen, a deep shot here or there to Jalen Hyatt. Malachi Corley is an unknown, but there are opportunities here to have a couple of boom weeks from the bench. Jerry Jeudy's on a new team. Maybe he has a bounce back. Maybe he can recover some of that lost value.
We'll see. He's flashed plenty of upside over his career, but he just hasn't been able to kind of put it all together. Maybe a change of scenery helps. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
The real question here is, the last name in this wide receiver room is Trey Palmer. Do you think he would trade me Trey Palmer for Rico Dowdle?
I think I would still prefer to have Rico Dowdle at this point, but I doubt he feels similar.
We'll check back in a few months.
To be fair, he really doesn't need Rico Dowdle with this running back room.
Everyone needs Rico Dowdle.
Rico Dowdle would be like his 28th string running back. So he'll probably still keep Trey Palmer.
Yeah, that would probably be that. Here's the thing. Even if it's not the case, he's never going to admit it.
He's come around. We saw him post his Desmond Ridder take.
The Desmond Ridder mea culpa.
He's learning. He's growing.
Let's hope we all are.
Yeah, this is a good team. I mean, we can get into his draft capital. There's a reason that he has a team full of superstars. He doesn't have any draft capital to speak of until 2027, because he used it all to buy a bunch of good players, which was probably smart. There's a reason that this is according to Dynasty Daddy, the number 2 contender. But yeah, this is going to be a tough team to beat all season.
Yeah, the regular season, the playoffs, he's, as long as he's healthy at the essential positions, quarterback and tight end there, he's just going to keep rolling. But
yeah, he was the best team for the vast majority of the season last year. He ended up as the number 1 seed, and he had the most points scored. Just had some tough luck one week in the playoffs, which can happen. Playoffs are random. Matchups can be tough sometimes. He was the favorite last year, and he'll probably be the favorite this year.
Yep. And like you said, that draft capital, nothing till 27, all the 27 picks still available. So maybe at some point he decides that those 27 picks are worth a player yet to be named, but maybe not. Maybe he's just going to hold and play it out.
If anyone's willing to go into 2027 picks to add to this roster, it would be big.
I'm pretty sure he and I tried to go into 28 picks during the pre-draft process and were shot down by Mel. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I'm pretty sure I made a declaration in chat that I would accept a random 28 for something, and I don't remember what it was.
Why am I not surprised that you would
He
be
was like,
involved
"Yeah, I'll do
in
that."
shenanigans?
And it was turned out. This could be. I could be misremembering. That could be even be in another league or something, but I'm pretty sure that actually happened.
It was in this league.
Okay. All right.
We were trying to convince Mel to post an IOU for the 2027 picks before they
we
were
know
posted.
he's good for it. All right. So that brings us to the end of this one. I just glanced at his team name. Big's team name is Corpse of a Dead Rabbit at the moment. So
Right.
it's gonna
Man in the Hat reference there.
Yeah.
He does
right.
have Aaron Rodgers on the roster, so
I'm not getting into the Hat Man right now. I don't want to offend anybody. All right, let's move on. We've got one team left. We don't need to cover it though. That's it for everybody. We'll talk to you
wonder
next week.
who that team could be.
So we have our final team with a 94% chance to make the playoffs. Our defending champion, Alvernaz 13.
Unfortunately for you all.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. All right, quarterback rank of 4. This room bears a lot of resemblance to the last one. Not a lot of fluff at the back. It's Anthony Richardson, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Gardner Minshew, and for some reason, Clayton Tune.
Yeah, he's in a taxi spot.
Got it.
I don't ever draft any rookies, so I don't have anyone to put in my taxi spots.
I saw Clayton Tune, and I'm like, why are you rostering Clayton Tune? If he's in a taxi spot, all right. That's
it was either pick up Clayton Tune or leave a taxi spot empty. So.
No, it's a good a backup quarterback is a good taxi spot anyways, because if he gets into value, you can grab him off the taxi and trade him away for a third or something.
I mean, he beat out Desmond Ridder, so he must be good, right?
Oof. The real question is he better than Trey Palmer? Come on, keep up. The number one spot in this room is Anthony Richardson, who you traded for fairly recently.
We discussed a couple of episodes ago about the reason behind that, so we don't have to get into it again. But yeah, just a big swing for the fences. I mean, I'm trying to win again, and Anthony Richardson certainly has the ceiling to be a quarterback one overall, not just a quarterback one, but the quarterback one.
Yeah. So,
and there's a chance that he does nothing or gets hurt, which is why I have 4 starting quarterbacks. Give myself a little depth as a contender.
I was going to say the added depth of Gardner Minshew makes me like that move a little bit more. Not that Gardner Minshew moves the needle in and of himself, but it's more having.
We'll see how long he stays a starter as well. But
it's more having that extra guy to just give you a little bit of a floor every week. Because Tua's going to have good games. Goff is going to have good games. Minshew will have games. But you can fill out a viable roster with those 3. And then if Richardson, does what he was capable of last year and goes off and has those big weeks, all of a sudden it catapults your team up to another level.
Yeah, in a best ball, you always want to try to have as many starters as possible because any one of them could get in the lineup every week.
Yep. And Tua and Goff both locked in mid-tier starters. They're very safe. They're very good, but not great.
Right.
It's a nicely constructed room, as we said of Big's room before.
Yeah, it's not the best room in the league, but again, it's a competitive room, and that's what I'm looking for.
All right, let's move over to that running back room. This is a similar thing. It's a competitive room, but it's not a great room. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Tajay Spears, Devin Singletary, and then we're basically to the backups.
A bunch of backups.
But
this is quantity over quality.
Some of these backups are pretty high end. Braylon Allen, Jordan Mason, Khalil Herbert. I don't know if you count Zeke as a backup per se, but he's going to get a lot of work. There's certainly some value here beyond just the standard handcuff running backs.
This is the opposite of what Big has. Big has all of the good starters I just have a bunch of backups hoping that I can get enough points every week. This is not the ideal way to build a running back room in a best ball because a lot of these guys aren't going to give me any points on a weekly basis. Very minimal upside without injuries, but I'm very thin. So this is the only choice I have really, unless I want to make a heavy investment and buy some higher tier running backs. This is the way that I decided to build my room. I went cheap, and this is the result. You get a bunch of crap.
It's actually interesting looking at these keep trade cut values that are listed here. You said big head like running back 5 through 20. What you seem to have here is running back, I don't know, 36 through 45. It's it's not the guys that are worthless, but it's the guys that are below flex level.
Right. I have the guys that nobody wants pretty much. I get old guys, backups, rookies. I take the guys that people don't want that are still going to get carries, hopefully. That's what I'm looking for. Give me the cheapest path to touches that I can possibly have, because my philosophy has been to not make big investments in this room outside of the Jahmyr Gibbs. It's nice to have an anchor. It's not quite zero running back like we've seen JMC's roster. It's more like a modified anchor strategy where
it's hero.
I have one good running back and then a bunch of guys that will hopefully get touches. If I can just get one of these guys to have a decent week every week, then I'll be good.
Yeah, between the guys like Zeke and Singletary, Spears, you should get at least a approaching double-digit score every week. You'll get 9 points out of one of those guys, which if the rest of your roster is solid enough, which we haven't gotten there yet, but spoiler alert to everyone, it is, that'll be enough.
Yep, and we know how it works with running backs. They're going to get hurt. A lot of guys are going to get hurt. Every week there'll be backups that become starters. So I just fill my bench with lottery tickets and hope for the best.
All right, so let's move over to the wide receiver room, which is really one of the strengths of this roster. This is painful for me to read off. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk. That is a better 5-man combo at the wide receiver position that I think we've seen at any position.
It's a very good wide receiver room at the top. I have 5 hopefully really good receivers. Glad that Ayuk finally re-signed, so hopefully he will play this season now that they gave him the money. But yeah, it gets pretty thin after that. After that, we're looking at kind of crusty vets and role players and just some ugly depth pieces.
Sure. But again, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk. You can have as much. Literally, that could be the end of the room, and you would outscore 3/4 of this league at the wide receiver position in total on the season.
There are certainly other teams that have a greater depth of starters, but yeah, it's tough to match the top 5 that I have.
Yeah. Well, we talked about Mel's team a few minutes ago where we said like, oh my God, he's got Chase and AJ Brown at the top. Well, CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson match up pretty well against those two. And then he doesn't have Waddle, Olave, and Ayuk right behind them. Like not to pick on his team because his receivers are, better than most is why I'm singling him out. It's an impressive room. Can we end this pod already? Jeez.
Well, I built the team with the intention of having a strong receiving room. That's where I wanted to invest my resources, and it has worked out so far. Won the championship last year on the strength of this receiving room. So far, so good.
Yeah, so far, so good. Now, the question that everyone has been burning to know is what made you decide to roster Mason Tipton?
Again, I have a bunch of taxi spots that I need to fill with anyone who is eligible. I don't have a lot of taxi eligible guys because I never seem to draft any actual players. So it's tough to have rookies and second-year guys to put in your taxi squad when you don't make any draft picks.
Yeah. Well, you should work on that because we'll get to it in a minute. But you have a lot of draft capital too. But before we get to the draft capital, let's go to the tight end room. Your tight end rank is 3. But this is one of the most functional tight end rooms we have. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, David Njoku, Chiga Okonkwo, and some backups.
Yeah, I have the big tight end room 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I've got the old guys that
Yep.
still score a bunch of points,
That sounds
which is
right.
fine because I'm a competitive team and I'm trying to win now. So I'll take the points. These guys have been depressed in fantasy value, but none of us would be surprised if Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce are among the top couple of scorers again at the tight end position.
All three of these guys are quite capable of finishing in the top 6 of the tight end position this year.
Yep. Yeah. I don't have much depth behind them, but when you have guys like that, that could be tight end 1 overall on the season, you can probably get away with not having great depth. And to be fair, no one really has great depth because tight end is atrocious.
True. And you've got Will Mallory. Maybe he's emerges.
Also on my taxi.
Jeez. The damn taxi squad. Is he still, was he second year, third year now?
Yeah. Second year. He was a rookie last year.
And you got Jelani Woods already on IR there. So
Yeah, that trade didn't work out. They're not all winners.
it'd be impressive if they were. All right. Speaking of trades not working out, though, let's go over to your draft capital, where you've been working hard to shore up this capital going into the season, because as we've seen over the last few years, you like to be hyperactive during the year. You like to be moving on the trade market at pretty much all times. So you won the championship, but didn't rest on those laurels. You've got 2 first-round picks in the 25 draft and 4 second-round picks in the 25 draft. All your 26, 27 capital is intact and unmoved. But how do you win a championship and then have this much freaking capital? How is this possible, guys? What have we allowed to happen here?
The reason that I'm thin at a lot of these positions is because I've kind of moved guys for picks, because I know that during the season, what people want to trade for is draft picks. And I know that I will need to buy players at some point during the season to shore up this depth or potentially add starters. And the best way to do that is liquid capital as draft picks. I know that you will want them, and the rest of the rebuilding teams that are not competing this year will want the picks. And so at some point I will make that transaction. There's a reason that I never make any rookie picks in the rookie draft.
There's a reason that Clayton Tune is on your practice squad.
Right. I don't usually draft rookies. I usually end up with a lot of picks, and then by draft time I usually have no picks. It's just currency for me.
Yeah. And we've seen you use that currency many a time. So I'm sure that half of these picks will be gone by halfway through the season, and then all of these picks will be gone by the draft.
Yeah, I would expect that.
So it's just kind of surprising to see your draft capital rank of 3 with a team as strong as the roster presents.
Yeah, well, this is the way that I've built my team, purpose built. I like to maintain flexibility. I don't want to have all of my team value tied up in players, because players can be difficult to move sometimes. You need another team to actually like that player at the same level that they're valued. But picks are flexible, so I try to maintain a decent cachet of picks for a rainy day.
Yep. And I should mention that extra first round pick is attached to Big's roster, so 2 late first round picks is what you have available. The second round picks are a little bit of a mix. Yours and Flinch likely to be late, Rugg likely to be somewhere in the middle, Criddle likely to be somewhere in the middle as well. One of those 2 probably likely to be actually high, but maybe not.
Nobody really knows where the picks are going to land at this point in the season.
Yeah.
We haven't even started yet.
It's all random prognosticating and guesswork, which is why we're here.
Exactly.
That wraps it up. Those are the teams. Those are the rosters. Those are the contenders, the friskies, the frauds, and the one trust the process. Shout out Mr. Good News.
We have some good rosters in this league. It's going to be another fun season, I think, for these contenders. There's at least 7, 8 teams that are legitimate playoff threats. And there's a handful of teams that we've seen with over 80% chances to make the playoff. That's a strong roster.
Very strong.
I mean, they're not all going to make it, which will be surprising. One or two of these teams that we talked about the last couple of days are not going to make the playoffs. And it will be a shock no matter who it is, because these are all very strong teams.
It's a fun league. It's nice to have a competitive league like this where we don't know. There's no foregone conclusions. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We get to experience it as the league goes on, because sometimes you end up, especially this is our 4th year going into it, especially a few years into leagues where it's just, you look at it and you know right away that there's 2 teams that have a chance and nobody else does.
Yeah, we certainly don't have that in this league. We've had a different winner every season, and
Yep.
I would not be shocked if we have a different one this year as well, as much as I would like to go back to back.
Yep. Shout out to our former champions, Mr. Good News and JMC.
Right. I would not be putting money on myself to repeat based on the strength of some of these other teams.
Yeah, well, it's another year in the League About Nothing, and we get to find out together. Hopefully everyone enjoyed our season previews here. We're going to be back during the regular season. We'll be doing our weekly recaps and everything.
Yep. Next show will be a week 1 recap show.
Yep. So
Season's
everybody
here.
get started
Football
on
time.
those trades. Otherwise, there'll be short shows.
I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about after week 1.
We're long-winded enough. They won't be short shows. That was an empty threat. All right. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye and get into the regular season?
Well, that's it. I wish you all terrible luck.
I'm sad that we're not doing our redraft league this year, because you always ended the auction draft by wishing everyone the worst of luck.
I had to get it in somewhere.